Here we go. Good Thinking 33, live from
Manati
LA
from
and New York.
a very sunny, beautiful Park Slope day.
Hmm. Jealous. Jealous. I could feel it.
Yeah,
I'm in.
yeah. Got to enjoy like a little subway ride. I always love going on the subway because it's like always there's so much advertising on the subway. So like I always
Hmm.
have so many feelings. Saw a really terrible kerning job by the MTA that like I was like trying to point it out to my husband and I was like, look at that letter is not and I'm not even one of those people. And I was just like, but look at that G is just in the wrong spot. So, but they now have digital. I haven't been to New York in a while, I guess, or not on the subway because we walk everywhere when you and I are here. And now
Yeah.
they have digital screens like in the trains, like so the ads are all connected. So so there's like ads up ahead and then the ads on the side. They're all
Yeah.
connected. So you can like
Wow.
some people
Like
are
full
just doing like
campaign.
this. Yeah, but some people are just doing like the same, like, like here's an image, like, and it's just kind of swiping and it's all just swiping at once. But some people are doing fun things like United had a plane and the plane flies across all of them, but as it flies, it like each one is revealing a different
That's
story.
rad.
Like, it was cute. I was into it.
Very cool. Wow. Lots of opportunity to really do something different.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you have a lot of fun with like that because it's very storytelling me, you know?
Hmm. It's kind of like the way
Yeah.
that Times Square, if you think about all those billboards and what that happened. I remember when I was at American Eagle, like how we just created and, you had to work in completely different parameters all of a sudden. But the impact that we see today from that, I think is pretty cool. Maybe the
Yeah.
subway
Yeah.
will
So
lead similarly.
I noticed somebody's ads. So somebody got eyeballs on some ads that they paid for, which I feel like sometimes like New Yorkers are just looking at evaluating everybody's shoe choice and like or reading a book or Instagram, right? So it is definitely a different landscape than it used to be, but it grabbed my attention.
I love it. Good to know. Okay, cool, cool. So let's dig in. So, out of the ordinary, I'm actually going to take your advice from the newsletter, and I really want to focus on the things that you recommended. RushTok recap and sharks in the college waters. And I just lost you. And so I want this to be really fun, but I really dug in and like, there were a lot of things in this newsletter that I was like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I hadn't seen that. Or, oh, I'd seen a bit of this, but like was helpful to see more. Like it was really like fun for me to kind of dig through and do all the things. But it was interesting. The RushTok recap, I was like, what the fuck's that? And like having to dig in. So I figure like I got a lot of learning to do. I've got to dig in and I want to know more. So I think it'd be helpful for our audience to kind of dig in a bit more,
Yeah.
even like at the basic level. So let's talk RushTok.
Yeah, let's talk about it. And I'll pull up. So Casey Lewis was doing her back to school deep dive, right? And her back to school deep dive is very famous and like it does really well. But then Rush Talk is happening simultaneously and is kind of like it's like, it's adjacent. It's back to school adjacent, right? Like as a phenomenon. But it's not it's its own thing. Like
But
it's its
but what is
own
it? What is it? Will you give
what
it give everybody a little like
okay,
download on it?
I see,
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
going down back to basics.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We're
So
getting all the way down.
obviously when you start, I mean, I say this obviously, I was never part of a sorority. I did not grow up in America, so like I say this and I'm like it's not really obvious to me, but obviously when you start in a sorority or in a fraternity, then you have this like rush season, right, where you're joining and like there's a lot of things happening from what I can tell of like people
Yes.
being evaluated about whether or not they can be in the sorority and like and it's turned into like it has always been huge, but it's turned into a much bigger thing on TikTok. And now, like if you're paying attention, like one of like so to get to the sharks in the water thing almost first, as an example of this, because I think it's easier to
Mm-hmm.
understand, is
Yeah.
like Gymshark and Prime sponsored a sorority, and so the sorority would like is kind of famous on TikTok for doing these dances. So if you look at that account that I shared, like they're doing this all the time, like these little dances little dances. I mean, they're very, very well
Right.
choreographed, like thought through things. And they're like doing that and they're all in the Gymshark and they're all holding Prime. And it was very like captivating, right? Like
Yeah. It was
they
well
did a good
choreographed. Yeah. The whole thing.
the whole thing was like choreographed well, but like also the coordination of the outfits, the fact that they actually weren't all wearing the same colors, but they were wearing these two colors, and like they're using the prime, but they were kind of using it as a prop, and they're not trying to like force it into like drinking it in the middle or anything silly like that. But like, and this is just one example, but like when you look at it, like there's just, it has its own energy, and these like sororities and the people who are following sororities, like this is a really big time for their audience, and so it's like they're at their peak right now, and then we're looking at trends that they are kind of sharing, and they're slightly different in the trend to the trends of like globally of back to school, which is now like there's back to school youth, there's back to school college, like that's a really like that's a big group, so to speak.
Right. But I feel like the video thing, like even I feel like it was a year ago or maybe a couple years ago, like there was something that you sent me or something we were talking about of like a Rush video or college. It was something. And I feel like it's just, maybe it's more my recognition of it, or it's like happening more and more like from that video portion to see kind of what I remember seeing. And then this like super well, like almost produced version of it with advertising is like kind of next level. And that feels like its own thing happening.
Yeah, I certainly haven't noticed, like we do a lot of back to school campaigns, right, in our work. And so like I know that like showing up on campus and being there during this time, being at homecoming, being like if you're going to go to the like different campuses have different things going on, right? But like being at homecoming is big, RushTok is now big, back to school in general is big, and there's all these different kinds of things going on, and you can kind of tap into all of them. But that's been happening for a while, but that to me felt different, like sponsoring a sorority. And sororities are, big money now. They're making a lot of content, and like they have beautiful kitchens, and like, they're making the food content, and they're making like, like these houses are not they're not average. So they're an interesting group of people to consider, a demographic, I would say, to consider your marketing.
For sure. All right, what else do we need to know in that?
Well, I mean, I like absolutely just fell in love with the idea that, so Casey Lewis, who writes back after school, right, had her mom, who was in a sorority, like, and her mom is apparently also like really good at just being on TikTok and noticing things. So like she had her mom do it because she was like, I'm busy doing this back to school report thing, and like I need to know what's going on. So her mom made this adorable and like notes document of like things that are just like more aesthetic things for sure, like not bigger picture trends, but more like kind of fashion trends. But like, like Yearman being big, like that stood out to me. I was like, okay. Like Hello Molly, Princess Polly, like all of these different things. Like, I mean, obviously we know cowboy is big. Tucking things into your bra has been big for a minute, but like, yeah, it's just interesting to like see these different trends. But yeah, the Yearman thing like really stood out to me, and the mixing like the Cartier and the Shine like stuff together.
Totally.
Slick back colors, has always been big. Yeah.
Right. But even but it feels like it's part of the bracelet trend happening for sure.
Yes, in the trend. So I don't know if I would say that there's like, do you need to know more about this? Like, I would say question to yourself, like, do you feel like this is your demo? And then just be considering this in your next back to school campaign. Like, are you better fitted for that? Like, to me, like Gymshark, like I think could be kind of in any demo, but because they're so fitness oriented, and these girls are like, they're fit and like they are a specific demo, like I think that was really smart. And obviously Prime again could fit in kind of any demo. I could see them, they're probably doing tons of school, like in all different capacities, but like they don't often, for me, associate so much with a female demo. And so I thought that was like an interesting play on their behalf.
Totally. And I think it's just an interesting take on back to school. Like you think about it, or at least from my experience, like it's really denim focused. It's like, it's all in the store. It's kind of the merchandising, and really thinking about on campus and like almost reverse marketing it, starting there with really creating your content. And sororities, and I assume fraternities are similarly. Again, I wasn't in one. I don't have like the inside scoop on it, but certainly it's a huge, thing happening on campuses, and that's such a focus of it. But I don't ever remember our, like, from a marketing standpoint, the back to school focus being so much that iteration versus like, well, what are we doing in store and what's happening? What are the windows doing? And what are these huge campaigns? For that to be almost like a headlining campaign is absolutely fascinating to me, and for sure, like, kind of flipping the flip.
Yeah, and we talk like we've worked on a lot of like back to school like physical activations, and like that's an interesting
Mhm.
time. Brands always want to be there during that moment, and I actually think there's pros and cons to being there right at the moment of back to school, because back to school is a busy time. Like, actually, students, oddly, if you could believe it or not, are like somewhat focused on getting back to school. And so, like,
Are
there's
they?
actually an advantage to being there, like, slightly later. Like, I mean, like, I'm talking weeks once they've, like, adjusted and
Yeah.
they've, like, signed up for all their classes and they've done all this stuff. So I think actually back to school is, like, a much more prolonged, bigger play, and, like, choosing where you show up at the right time. That felt like a really, like, it tapped in right at the moment where everyone's
Yeah.
celebrating and being back together, and that felt really celebratory and nice, versus like trying to like be like, do you need this new denim jacket, like come buy it in store? And it's like, I don't know, like I don't think anyone thinks that way anymore, but denim is doing really
Totally.
well,
Yeah.
as it always has.
No, totally. I think that's a totally good point. I think all of the variables kind of lined up. The timing was right. The audience, the product placement, the actual content of it, I think is totally right. I think the other thing is, moving in from my perspective, like so many of my friends and what's in my feeds are parents moving their kids in, like this week, last week, like it's across the board, everything that I'm seeing and experiencing on the chats and all the things of my world. And I know, like, there have been people that have done things on campus and the move-ins and things like that, but I think it's such an opportunity to really like rethink about how you're really doing that. Moving in is such an opportunity to do something from so many brands, so many different levels, whether it's the dorm room, whether it's like the emotional thing for sure happening for parents. And then I think, to your point, like denim and kind of the content can come, down a bit
Yeah.
when you're actually in school.
Yeah, and I think like to your point, like I actually think that parents, I've noticed more parents talking about it. Like, like there's a lot of memes where it's like, oh, like if your mom is like trying to like make your bed and like, fluff your pillows, just let her go make the bed and fluff the pillows. So she's just like used to do that. So she's like, it's her last time to like make the bed and fluff the pillows.
Totally.
But like, I actually think that like on the flip side, like now you have a bunch of like people who are coming home, they're empty nesting. And like, this is like a different point in their lives. And like, and now we have so much more information. And I think that's another thing, like there's going to be a turning point where that like, oh my God, like this is such a like hard thing for me, is going to turn into a celebratory, like, wow, I'm in a new chapter. And this
100%.
chapter, like, it could be really different. Like we've talked about this with divorce. Like you went from like, hey, I'm just like, I'm married and I'm doing all this thing. And then you went from like, I have 2 weeks to do whatever I want and 2 weeks where I'm with my kids and I'm being a mom. But like in the 2 weeks where your kids are not with you, you're traveling more, you're doing things like you are a demo, and like you could be,
Totally.
I think these parents are a demo, and you could be there in a positive, like this is not about taking advantage of people, but this is about celebrating something that is like, you're about to like embark on maybe more free time for yourself and more gym time or more travel time or more reading time or more like you want to redecorate your house. Like there's all sorts of things coming out of it. And I think that there's definitely like an opportunity for a brand to kind of celebrate.
Totally.
Cool.
And support it. Like sometimes it is like for the people, Christina's out right now dropping Aiden off. And like for her, like it's an emotional time and what's happening. And, and so it is about maybe supporting in that moment. And I think brands can really be there. Is it just that we know more now of like literally the demo, and literally I think we've moved from like this demographic, okay, they make this much money, they do this, versus like this is actually what they're going through and where they are from an emotional standpoint. Oh, then what their free time, or they're going to be interested then getting their life back and exercising and doing whatever it is that they want to be doing. It feels like we're so much more aware of that now, of like an emotional and physical of what people need, that there's such an opportunity to really support that.
I mean, I think that you and I have always operated from that point of view. I do think like sometimes like in the like digital acquisition is interesting, right? Because you can like really hone in and talk to these talk to people, but I do think like some of the sort of emotional sentiment of that approach, you get lost in, like it gets lost in that, like just like, oh, you're just this person doing this thing, like let's just like try to sell you a couch. And to me, like the brands always that people remember and love, and like, you know, Nike lost its way, but I'm sure it's going to make a comeback. Like I believe, like I'm always an optimist when in that respect. And like I think that there could be like, you know, a really great like there should be a section in Target for empty nesting, not just
Totally,
pets.
man. Go down. This is the divorce aisle. This is the empty nesting aisle. This is the like. I'm in. I'm 100% in.
It's like the empty nesting thing is like one time of the year. Divorce is harder. I'll give them that.
Maybe we'll do it seasonally.
I mean, who knows? But like, yeah, I think that it's there's a lot of opportunity, and I think like what I just to kind of bring it back is that one of the things I like so much more about that Gymshark thing is that it was just so happy, and like I think that's kind of like at the end of the day, I think that's what people are in the mood for right now, and so I would look for ways to kind of bring that to all things.
I love it. I'm in. I'm here for it.
Awesome.
All right. Under 20 minutes. Go enjoy
Done and dusted.
Park Slope.
Yes, I'm going to be having some Oaxacan food in about 2 hours because gotta get some non-Italian flavor profiles in my life.
Right.
Love Italian food, but need that. Need something else.
Yes. Go to that mezcal bar for me, please.
Ooh, yeah. Oh, excellent recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Till next week.
All right. Ciao.
Good thinking. Bye.